Good afternoon, and welcome to our ACC Lunch+Learn webinar. I am TJ Schultz, the President of the Airport Consultants Council, and I'd like to thank you for joining us for today's session, which is titled Selling Like a Retailer, What Airports Need to Know. Before getting underway, ACC would like to thank NCR Corporation for sponsoring this informative webinar. I have a few logistical notes to go through before our webinar. First, participants will be on the call will be muted. We encourage you to ask questions using the questions window on the right-hand side of your screen. I will be collecting those questions and relaying them to the presenter at the end of the webinar. Also note that we will send you a copy of the presentation and also a survey regarding the webinar later on today. You may notice a slight delay as I advance the slides, and we certainly appreciate your patience as we move through the presentation. And now on to our program. The world's leading airports are beginning to look to the retail industry on how to best engage today's digital consumer at the right place and the right time. Technology solutions are available that make it easier for airports to sell and for passengers to buy by extending access to products and services through any channel and at any point throughout the journey. This webinar will provide an overview of NCR's Travel Marketplace, a comprehensive merchandising solution that integrates self-service, consumer experience, and retail to transform an airport's retail potential. Following the completion of the webinar, participants should be able to understand how to fill the purchasing gaps throughout the passenger journey by finding new ways to connect with passengers at any time and through any channel, and consolidate inventory management, offer multi-channel distribution, manage the transaction process, integrate analytics, and extend your retail initiatives to grow ancillary revenue. We are pleased to have Adam Berenger, Manager of Business Development North America for NCR, who will start off the webinar by introducing our speaker. Adam's aviation career expands more than 13 years, during which he has worked with major systems integrators, airport construction firms, and technology providers. And Adam, I want to thank you for helping to facilitate this webinar, and I'll turn the program over to you.
Thank you very much, TJ. I appreciate it. And thank you to everybody on the phone call today to learn what airports need to know and how to boost their revenues or increase them. Michael Boyd, my professional services partner, will be going ahead and leading this presentation. He travels with me quite a bit and introducing this product and solution to airports around the world. So, Michael?
Thanks, Adam, and thanks, TJ, and again, welcome to everyone on our call here today. So as we said, we're going to talk about selling like a retailer and what's key to airports, and we'll start with some logos that you see up here. They're probably, those names are a little familiar to you, but I'm actually not going to talk about any of the ones you see there, and those are some of the leading airports that we have out there in the world. Instead, what I'm going to do is start to talk about some other brands that consumers are really focusing on, and some of the brands that you're going to know. And why do we do that? Because whether we like it or not, consumers, as they go through any shopping choice, are really looking towards the retailers that they use every day, particularly in some of the digital space that they use to go buy things today. And the merchants, the ones you see here now, the Targets and Amazons of the world, they're the standard that you really need to compete against and compare against if you're looking to increase your sales. So one of the things that the analyst company Verdict, they actually summed it up quite nicely. And they said in their global airport retailing report for 2014 that the main issue for airports is really the limited shopping time travelers have. And if we all think of that, passengers are getting more precious of their time. They're arriving at the airport closer to their departure window, and it's really limiting, as they point out here, really limiting the time they have to do shopping pre-flight. So Verdict concluded that retailers that end up offering that pre-flight shopping service, whether that's online or some other mechanism, will really help focus on allowing shoppers to browse, gather information ahead of time, and focus on boosting their spend. And when we found this quote, we thought it was a really appropriate point to point out how the passenger journey has started to change, and therefore, again, if we're going to be successful as airport retailers, we need to be able to accommodate that change and move forward with it. Now, NCR itself has been around about 130 years, and we've really been driven all by the same force, and that's the demanding consumer. So what happens to be new, though, is that really the physical storefront's no longer that single point of sale. Consumers themselves have grown really more demanding in their buying process, both now, before, during, and after that point of sale. On the other side, the merchant, they're still trying to achieve growth, and that's their primary business goal. But that brings its own challenges, right? And as a result, there's some gaps in the middle. And we call that the consumer experience gap. And they happen to appear all the time. There's always opportunities that comes up, and we do believe that it's through consumer transaction technology, that mix of software, hardware, and services that can be used to help solve that gap. And we'll talk about that through this presentation today. One of the other elements that's come up is that we've also seen, applying that right technology really also is key to have 4 specific, we call them mega trends in retail, that make you or your airport clients and your tenants very successful. So what are those current trends that are driving consumer behavior? Where are those gaps? Now, for each of these 4 trends, I'll go through them. I'm going to share with you some of the consumer behavior that drives it, the challenges and opportunities that presents to you as tenants and retailers, and specifically what it means for us in the travel industry. Now, the first one is self-service. That's all really going to be about providing time and control back to the consumer. Number 2 is mobility. We'll talk about how we interact with the consumer really from anywhere or anytime throughout their travel journey. Number 3, merchandising, is the skill of matching up the right product or service to the consumer's need, what they need at that point in time. And the last one, the seamless user experience, essentially is making it easy for the consumer to buy. And again, for each trend, we'll go through each one, identify some of the challenges, and again, what it ends up meaning to you. So if we start to look at the first one, the first trend was self-service. Now, we're a little used to self-service in the travel industry, and what it ends up meaning for us really is that self-service, as I mentioned, is all about time and control. And the story that presents to you is that from a time standpoint, consumers are telling us, and 70% of them specifically say they don't have enough time. In fact, that same study even went deeper and said that time for consumers is so scarce that 50% of the consumers said they actually have more money than time. And if you think about it, that's a great retail opportunity to have, right? The second part of it is getting a little bit into control. Consumers want to have control. They want to be able to choose the options that give more time back to them. So it's probably not surprising, the 2 stats that we have there. 61% of consumers are completely willing to shop, or they're willing to shop in a completely automated store. 52% of them actually prefer self-checkout stations in order to avoid waiting in line. And if we think of our experiences, both maybe you at the grocery store or the home improvement store, or specifically within even our environments within the airport and travel itself, we're seeing more and more passengers choose those self-service options because what do they want to avoid? Being in a line somewhere. So the story certainly is all around, again, time and control, and we're seeing the statistics from researching with consumers where that goes. Now, the consumer part of it is one side, but really there's a side of it for the retailers and tenants alone, and it actually ends up being a win-win situation for self-service. Some of the research we've done has shown that for Walmart specifically, a rather large retailer, right? They're one of the ones getting it right. If they can shave 1 second off their checkout process, okay, some improvement, some tactic that they can do, and that's both from their self-checkout as well as their assisted checkout services, that leads to a $12 million annual savings for them. That's not small, right? And that leads to a lot of other valuable savings that really benefit both the retailer and the consumer. Some of them that really focus on, I guess, more the retail of those first couple ones is, a self-checkout solution or strategy that you have. Number 1, helps reduce lines. We find that they reduce lines overall within a store by up to 40%. and end up resulting in a 20% throughput increase. That means the number of people that you can check out and get out of the store so you can get the next person, the next consumer in to complete their purchase. So it's freeing up a capacity, moving people through more. For the retailer, it's also helping them to redeploy a little bit better too. Most people immediately think self-service is going to lead to massive, labor changes, and I think even from the airline industry, let's face it, the travel industry with self-service kiosks that we've had around now for just about 20 years in the industry really haven't dramatically eliminated employees within the airport space, but really shifted them around into different roles. And it's that redeployment of labor, taking an agent off of a single task that they're working on to move on to some other piece. And we see examples of it from our everyday life, right? At the deli, a counter at a supermarket store, you'll see machines that help take your order and process it, saving you time and convenience. The ironic part is they actually are driving revenue increases too. Most of our grocery store and convenience store customers that have self-service deli stations see an increase in their overall sales at that deli counter or at that convenience counter. We've even seen in the travel industry with Hertz, the rental car company. And what we found and concluded is that when there are options presented through a self-service machine, it doesn't really feel maybe like a sales pitch to the consumer, and it leads them to be more willing to buy. And that kind of leads us to the what does it mean to you from a self-service piece. And it's really focusing on self-service needs to be part of your retail strategy. Consumers want it. In the travel industry alone, they almost don't want to talk to anybody until they board the plane. And they're looking for self-service options throughout their whole experience, from maybe their pre-flight check-in, which, again, most of us have that today, but then really getting into the rest of their experience, navigating through the airport and enabling touch-screen shopping there and self-service capability, even all the way to self-service options of making it easier to buy at checkout. So again, a lot of different self-service initiatives and strategies to help give time and control back to that consumer. The second trend, if we get into it, is mobility, which again is the ability to let that consumer interact with you at any point in their journey. And again, that's driven primarily by that consumer demand for give me interaction at any time on my control. So for those of you who love big numbers, the industry analysts out there predict overall that mobile payments are going to grow to $1.3 trillion in the next 3 years. So that's a pretty significant shift in how consumers are paying and interacting for things. And now, when it comes to using that mobile device, we found that a large percent, 86% of mobile consumers are even willing to pay for a better experience using their mobile device, right? But unfortunately, there is a gap here, and we can see that from the bottom two numbers. Only about a third of shoppers actually think it's easy, compared with online or in-store experiences, which they rate, much higher, 70% and 91% as being easy. Well, only a third of them think it's easy on their mobile phone, and 82% of them say the customer experience is just way too much effort on mobile. So, gee, that doesn't paint a real rosy picture for us. And our folks in retail, our colleagues in retail, are really aware of that gap between the consumer demands of what they're providing, and their focus definitely is going on mobile. In the retail industry, they have their big NRF, big show as they call it, in January every year. And this January, when they met in New York, the merchant leaders said that really improving CRM and loyalty was their top business priority for 2014. Being able to know what people are buying and rewarding them and tracking them for that. And part of that ranking was driven by a couple of the trends. Really, first, consumers are using their mobile devices more to shop and to transact. 129% of them, year over year, from 2013 to prior, 2012, actually had increases in smartphone sales. So consumers buying things from their smartphone, and tablets was even more, 178%. So a lot more use of mobile to actually make the transaction. It's also led to an increase in showrooming, which that's the term for retailers where someone looks at something online or goes to look at something in the store and then quickly goes online to see where can I get the best deal for it. So definitely some consumer mobile adoption trends that are pushing the retailers to say we need to advance our CRM view and our loyalty views to help take advantage of that or capture that. And on the IT side, they certainly see that as matching those gaps that they know they have in their consumer technology. How do they integrate with different applications more as the top one? 47% of the retailers are doing something about it and seeing that as a challenge and priority. Developing mobile apps that really empower customers and get them engaged was right behind it at 45%. So a lot of initiative and focus on the mobile side of things. What does this mean to you then in prioritizing your mobile strategy? Number one, start by increasing your engagement. Get to know your customer and really focus on objective data, not anecdotal data. Use the data that you can get from those mobile channels in your mobile strategy to determine where your customer is spending their time, what are they trying to fulfill, and then using that mobile presence to really make it easy to interact. And the weird thing for us to be in the travel industry is unlike a conventional store or a conventional retailer, every passenger physically comes to our space, right? They're all going to be at the airport. They physically have to get there to get on board. Mobility for us just makes it easier for them to navigate and spend that time at the airport. And it could also, give that link into their behavior so you can start using that to promote offers, couponing, really location-based marketing items to really innovate. And Home Depot, the example we have on screen here, is probably one of the better examples of using, in their case, QR codes, location-based technology, other items within the store so that you can use their app to scan the code in the store, get live product demos, maybe open the app to find out where you are in, where is that product within my store itself that I'm in, where else can I find it, what else can I do with it, do I have other, installation or implementation information, guides and FAQs that I can have access to. So again, another example of getting to all the different channels and especially mobility. So that me as the consumer, I can take this information, take it with me, and digest it when I have time to, or come back and use it in a different light. So that was mobility, our second trend. If we go into our third retail megatrend, which was merchandising, and again, that was the ability to get the matching up of the right product or service to a consumer and their needs. Now, the story behind this is, and if you think about it, it's a little bit more like the coffee shop experience, right? Customers and consumers, they want that personalized experience. We all like it when we go into some establishment and the people there recognize us. Maybe they even refer to us by name because we're in so often. They know our favorite coffee latte. Maybe it's not a coffee shop, but some other establishment that serves a different type of beverage, right? The Cheers example, right? Hey, Norm. We like that familiarity. We like this because we buy from people in places where we feel comfortable as consumers. And we don't want to have to start over for every buying relationship, to start that over from scratch every time on the shopping experience. And let's face it, we all want to be rewarded for our loyalty. The majority of consumers, they want some type of, over 50% want unique pricing, deals, and discounts on their loyalty. And almost half of them, 45%, really want to be to have their accounts completely connected. So whether I'm buying something online or in the store, I have a way to get to that right product at the right time. And one good example of this that we found is, and it's one of many, is the beauty product company Sephora. And they've launched what we kind of see as a really well-done personalization with their My Beauty Bag experience. And with that, a consumer can see all their past purchases, kind of conceptually if they're looking through their handbag. It makes it easy for that consumer to buy online. They don't have to remember what did they buy the last time or what was their brand preference. It's kind of there and fed up for them in a very personalized way. And you're actually seeing merchants in all different industries replicate this, right? It could be General Motors with their OnStar service providing you details from your car, to prescription plans. now sending you reminders and promotional information when it's time to reorder, or even home improvement stores. I mentioned Home Depot before. I'll balance that by mentioning Lowe's this time. You know, they've got their My Lowe's account that will maintain your home maintenance history, match it up with a personalized seasonal schedule, as well as all of the purchases you made in the past. So you don't have to remember, you know, what was the type of filter I bought for my air system last time, right? It's fed up for you automatically. And this type of personalization is really strong at driving loyalty, but more importantly, as the retailer, gives you the ability and the view into that buying history, so you can figure out what are the right incentives to offer to push as a sale. Now, if we go into the, you know, what it kind of means and what that data set is from the retail perspective, it's probably no surprise that the more comfortable that consumer feels, the more likely they are to buy things. And when we talk about merchandising, especially online, the one real threat is, you know, how frustrating a site may come to consumers. And again, we've probably all experienced this, where you started to look at something, it was so frustrating, you gave up. You closed your browser, you closed your system, and didn't want to look at it. And that's what they call an abandonment rate on a shopping cart. 2013, the industry average was 68%, and you know that means 68%. Over 2/3 of the people walked away from what they were looking to buy for some reason. And the good news is that was actually down from over 70% the year before. From a retailer's perspective, though, if they can improve that by 10%, it has a huge impact on their revenue, about a 30% improvement on their bottom line. And that's why retailers, when we look at the retail industry to see what they're doing around merchandising, the key trends they're doing is really to make more information available, focusing on helping to get that purchasing decision info to the customer, the consumer, so they can literally decide to buy before they're right in the store, right at the point of purchase. And that includes things like better product detail, recommendations, personalization. For retailers, they can use a lot of that to do A/B testing to figure out which branding and phrasing and packaging sticks better, as well as having some of the integration between the different channels and navigation. So again, the retailers are seeing those gaps, and they're investing heavily from what we see in their area. And what that means then for us in travel overall, from an industry perspective and from a merchandising perspective for all of you, is there's really four big items. The first one, you know, certainly focus on the investment of your digital presence. You know, make sure you're always improving, getting stronger, getting a cleaner view of things, to make it easier for passengers to get information. And basically, as consumers, they're expecting us to keep up with our counterparts in the retail industry and the banking industry and all the other touch points they have whenever they're buying something. The second highlight, certainly the unique and exclusive goods, products, and services. Really focus on how can you make those attractive. You know, there's a few stats that I'd seen at one of the industry retail conferences a couple of months ago that said about 80% of travel retail purchases end up being impulse buys. You know, of something that's unique, exclusive. I can only get it here. Ooh, I want to get it. How do you take advantage of those and highlight those more than we're doing today? Personalization, the third one, is really focused on providing either that specialized pricing or discounts. You know, really looking for new ways to leverage what you know about the consumer, about the passenger, to give them something that they feel is special and will trigger them to buy. And then finally, it's about being in the right place at the right time, being relevant. Right, passengers want to get that set of relevant products at the right time in their trip, in their life cycle of the trip, based on who they are, maybe where they're going. You know, don't offer me sunscreen if I'm going skiing, and vice versa. Don't offer me ski mittens if I'm going to an island somewhere on the beach, as well as things that are in the right part of my trip's life cycle. Or, you know, we've probably seen a lot of those extra ads and offers that come up with, you know, the credit card offer when I already have one for whatever retailer is offering it. So lots of different merchandising pieces, but again, all boil back to how do you make that a better presence for them. And then the last trend that we get to is around the seamless experience. How do we make it easier for the consumer to buy from us? Now, as consumers, We're always on the move. We're always ready. We're always busy. As we heard before with self-service, we want that time and control back. So to make that experience seamless for us, consumers have shown that there's a lot of things that they want on flexibility, especially as we jump between different devices. Maybe I'm accessing the same store online on my phone or on my tablet as well as physically in the store. We love that flexibility as consumers, so we want to be able to pay anytime, anywhere. I want to get loyalty points as a consumer for that, or get specialized promotions. And if you don't have what I want to find a way to get it, and maybe there's a way you can go about doing that. The gap, though, is consumers don't think that the merchants are keeping up with that. And the big number in red, 48% of consumers think that stores and retailers are doing a really poor job of integrating the store shopping experience online and mobile, and that's where they need to improve the most. With that view of it and looking at seamless experience, one of the retail scenarios we took was from Safeway, the grocery provider, and they created a whole approach to grab extra market share, actually, by creating what they call a Just For You platform. It was a program designed to help synchronize the in-store and online purchases, improving their loyalty by rewarding customers and giving them discounts on what they wanted. And they actually found 6 elements that made what they felt was a really seamless experience. And you can see those here. It was, number 1, being consistent in all the touch points that you had with that consumer, both online, in-store, and offline. To be connected, giving a link into their experience in the store and helping them find items within that location. Number 3, integrated merchandising, meaning having offers relevant to what I'm buying or what I'm near within the store. They also got into flexible fulfillment and returns. How do I make it easy to get something if it's not in stock, or to return it if it was an issue? And apparently, yes, you can return things in grocery stores. The personalized interaction, number 5, was how do they get more personalized so that helping their staff know when someone was in the store who's one of their key shoppers, how do you get to know them and give them better pieces, all to result in number 6, how do you make each shopping experience better, faster, and more memorable with them to really drive some loyalty. And again, then what this ends up meaning to us is that really retailers have set this high bar of connectedness and experience, and as travel providers, we almost need to catch up with them. Now, travel, unlike retail, gives us a pretty linear journey to use. The actual travel journey is we know what steps the consumer is going to go through, the passenger is going to go through, yet we have this really inconsistent experience with wider ranges of different partnerships, loyalty schemes, maybe even different sites we have to navigate through if we're doing things online. And that's really fundamentally where there's some investment needed. How do we bring together some of those different systems, bring together all the players in the travel journey, provide options, preferences in one place across platforms, whether I'm on a computer at home, on my mobile device, on my kiosk, and who knows in the future, right? I could have my Google Glass as I go through the airport feeding me information, and I guess maybe someday the chip in my head, as they might say, right? So, and part of that inconsistency is focusing on how do we incorporate that all back into that loyalty program to help reward and send passengers and give them some contextually relevant offers at the right moment within their journey. So that's the basic part of the 4 megatrends. So if we look at the how to be successful, the successful retailers out there are following these 4 megatrends. Self-service, again, it's providing time and control of the consumer, especially because they're demanding it now. Mobility, interacting with the consumer anywhere and anytime, and really finding maybe some inspiration from initiatives that we might see as consumers ourselves in the financial, retail, or other areas of a consumer's life, because consumers are looking for that similar experience on our mobile devices. Merchandising, again, matching up the right product, service to the consumer's need, hopefully with personalized and very relevant offers for where they are. at that particular point, that context. And finally, the seamless user experience, make it easy for the consumer to buy. Again, we all see passengers. There's a lot of stress that goes through that travel process in and of itself, but how do we work with all those partners, our tenants, our airports, even our airlines, to give that consistent experience across the board on their travel experience? Now, with those 4 megatrends in mind, and we look to see, well, that's how retailers are being successful, we at NCR kind of turned our head to say, well, what can we do for travel retailing? How do we make that more successful? And there were a lot of what-ifs that we started with, because fundamentally we wanted to brainstorm of, well, how do we, number one, incent the passenger to spend more during their trip? Number two, how do we interact with them both before, during, and after their journey? How do we add the ability to target those passengers and reach them? And finally, how do we make sure we can monitor everything to know what's working and what's not? So we took those what-ifs, we took some of those 4 megatrends, and we also took some of the research and information we know about the travel industry and the travel flow itself. So we do studies on consumer behavior in airports, and there's a lot of things we learned. One, passengers have time at the gate. Number two, they don't want to leave the gate because they're afraid of missing their flight or information about their flight. Number three, they're willing to spend their money on something, mostly food and beverage. And the last thing we also learned, too, was they're willing to save some money if they can get a coupon, especially delivered to their mobile device. So if you look at just some of these stats, especially the 4 I highlighted here in yellow, you've got passengers, pretty, captive audience, most likely with an hour or so between security and their flight, probably in the hold room areas of the gate. And willing to receive incentives so they can go spend some money nearby. That was one kind of touch point we had. The second one, and I mentioned it a few times already, of looking at the entire traveler journey, and that point that we learned from our research is you really do need to look at throughout the entire journey. And if we take a look at it from a visual standpoint, across the whole passenger journey, you've got everything from planning and reserving, booking their flights, all the way through getting to the airport, through checking in, through security, onto the departure gates, all the way through to their destination, some other travel to get there and back. And all too often, when we would talk with everyone about retailing in the travel space, we were really only looking at a very brief point of the journey. Right? Most of it focused on being able to capture that consumer for that small time period that they're in the airport retail areas between check-in and departure. And then, given some of the constraints, so they don't want to leave their gate, they don't want to miss their flight info, how do we fit that all together to expand the sales cycle, to really look across the whole passenger journey? How do we glue together some of those disparate systems and do so through a lot of the different channels? And what that led us to come up with at NCR was that all that research really led for us to develop what we call the travel marketplace. So we looked at the revenue streams, all of those products and services that are being sold, from food, retail, other travel services, to all the channels to sell through, the existing check-in devices, dedicated kiosks, maybe signage, web, and mobile devices. And we saw a gap where there really wasn't anything to help connect the items being sold to the ways passengers wanted to buy. So we went through all of our existing retail solutions, and we really pulled them together to create a cloud-based software platform to serve as a real central marketplace, ultimately providing a unified view of the passenger as a consumer with their buying habits. And then from a functionality standpoint, it really ends up featuring a common catalog for products, goods, and services that has an inventory management feature as well, a PCI secure payment processing engine that can be distributed across multiple channels, so that sales effort could happen on different types of devices, and finally comprehensive integrated analytics, so we could tell what was sold, what's trending. And again, we built this all as a cloud-based platform to help integrate in all those different data sources, whether that's catalogs and inventory levels from different tenants or through other different travel providers, things you'd typically see in your normal current infrastructure for an airport and travel environment. So we built this travel marketplace out. And it's got a few key components to it. The tangible ones, and again, it's kind of tough sometimes to talk about a cloud-based software product that lives on a server somewhere that we all interact with. But some of the tangible pieces that actually are the passenger's experience include a few big things. First one is the interactive advertising channel. I'll talk a little bit about those features. We've also got the marketplace shopping cart to help the consumer actually do the buying, as well as you see some of the different options here, where that same shopping cart that you see on the big device on your left, and that device on the left is a large screen, approximately 5-foot high touchscreen kiosk. People joke it's a large iPad or iPod. Through the smaller, more traditional check-in kiosks that you see in the middle, and those are devices that you might find at the local deli or your grocery store, but you might also find them at check-in counters. We actually have that deployed for several airlines at their check-in counters, as well as a few airlines have those deployed now gate side. As well, so right in the gate hold room areas as another mechanism to use, as well as on a web or mobile device as well, having again that same cloud-based catalog available. Now, the first one we're going to go through is that interactive advertising piece of it. Now, I'm probably a bit biased, but we kind of think this portion of the marketplace is with the interactive ad technology is the cool part. We've built a simple mechanism to help take an offer, push that out to someone's mobile phone, whether it's offers, info, or rewards, and really from any display screen. And that could be a kiosk or some other display monitor, digital signage that's up within a terminal. And we're doing this through the use of embedded audio technology, a hidden high-pitch audio wave that we can't hear but our phones can. And with it, we can push an offer out to a passenger so they can catch it, which is them recognizing it. They can save it. They can keep it in a digital wallet, and then they can redeem it later either in-store or online. Now, that's not even really the cool part. The cool part is that we can actually measure then each of those touch points. So we can effectively provide a complete analysis of how effective that offer is, how many people saw it, how many people took each action with it along the way, and identify are there changes that may need to get made to move it forward. So with that, I want to give a quick walkthrough of how that works. So the next slide will show us if I've got on that large digital screen, the ad that's at the top, so the top portion of that screen we have running, in this case, a Hertz ad. Now as that video ad plays, it's got an embedded high-frequency audio tone, and in the mobile application, there's a small module we provide that can listen for those offers. So as the offer comes across, the phone hears it. It then prompts the user with a button that pops up as nice and blue. The user can push that button, so they're actually taking the action to accept the add-in. That offer gets transferred down digitally as, again, a digital, it's an audio barcode is the official term we use for it. It's bringing that information into the phone and displays it, so the consumer, again, has to accept it to put it into their wallet. And then once they put that into that digital wallet, so they've done all the opt-in portions as they go, they have a choice of either bringing up, again, a barcode maybe for redeeming it in store, or actually pushing a button to link to the appropriate mobile website to complete that purchase. So really getting to the point where we can take an offer, not only communicate it out to the passenger, have them catch it, track all of that so we know how effective it's being, and to then let them actually consume the transaction or enact the transaction. And that could be for anything, whether it's an actual device, a Hertz rental here, or any product or informational piece that we can push along. So that's one of the more interesting pieces we think is going to change the approach. The second part of the solution is really the marketplace shopping cart. And there it's really a standard e-commerce technology that NCR is using in thousands of department stores to help them extend their sales. Products in general are broken into a bunch of different categories. You can see some of them broken down on the screen here. And as I choose a category, it brings up the detail items in the category, and I could scroll through that, scrolling left to right, moving through them. For any item I choose, it brings up a detailed item. I can see an image, the description. We can also see the little red stars there are the ratings that others have rated on. I can share it on social media. And the little bubbles under that are for text or email or Facebook or Twitter. I can look at a big detailed image of it. So here, duty-free watches, I can actually see the fine details of that watch. And if I want, I can actually push it into my shopping cart, put it in my bag, and buy it right here, right at the kiosk with a credit card swipe and order it. Another step we've done is we've taken where I said the context and relevancy part. If we take someone's boarding pass, like here a boarding pass going to JFK, that large screen kiosk does have an interactive scanner on it, and by scanning the boarding pass, we can decrypt the boarding pass code itself, the barcode, to know in this case the consumer is going to JFK, which is in New York. We can then filter through the catalog of stuff and show the relevant goods, products, and services that would be appropriate for someone going to New York in the end of April. We can also take that a step further by, if there's other promotional activities, such as maybe an email offer that was sent out to consumers or people that are loyalty members within the loyalty program, or maybe even something that gets embedded, through a partnership at the bottom of a boarding pass with the airlines. In this case, you could see the Circle Line 2-hour Best of Manhattan cruise is in the ad at the bottom of that boarding pass. That can be scanned online to bring the offer right up, to give them an ability to link right to that or buy right there on their phone. And by having that interaction, again, we've now made it a much more personalized, contextually relevant offer that we're giving to that passenger. Now, the catalog is really the power behind it. I mentioned it a few times, and certainly it's a cloud-based catalog. It's got open, web page tools that anyone, airports and their tenants, can add in any product or good or services for sale. But it doesn't have to start empty. We actually are providing a starter set of an entirely new type of content, destination travel services, things to do, see, or entertain in while you're at that destination you're going to. And we've partnered with a number of our travel partners out there to build what's currently a catalog of over 50,000 destination travel items covering 450 cities worldwide. And we make that available on a subscription basis, so there isn't an upfront fee to use. The airport or the merchant, they'll end up getting a commission for each sale, and there's really no other fulfillment or support responsibilities. We're at NCR, we're using our electronic mobile ticketing engine, which actually provides a lot of the mobile barcodes for most of the major airlines. And we're using that to help send out the event and destination tickets. So for example, let's say I was going to London. One of the options in the catalog for London is one of those big London double-decker bus tours to all the touristy spots throughout it. If I purchase that through the catalog, I'll receive an email with my mobile ticket on it and all of my details. It also will have in there information to link me to the customer service desk we maintain that's there to help handle any follow-up questions or support issues. So it's giving a new revenue stream with a lot of really high-quality, relevant content to be made available to travelers through not just a kiosk where they scan their boarding pass on, but they can certainly also search through it through their mobile device or through the websites. So in summary, we've got our NCR Travel Marketplace. That's really our answer to how to solve the consumer transaction and technology expectation gaps that we've spoken about here today, between the consumer's demand for I want it on any device at any point at any time, I want you to know about me, I want you to know what I buy and where I'm going, with how do we have other items that we can help grow, control, and interconnect with different travel providers within the travel space. And again, it's a cloud-based platform, helps connect all those disparate data sources and travel providers into that master catalog, one that can go out on multiple channels, The larger screen kiosks are items that could, we envision, be placed in hold rooms or baggage claim areas, and it's all ultimately supported by NCR and our global service capability. So that's the summary of both the strategy portion of the 4 big megatrends that really you all need to adopt in growing that travel solution set with you and help think like a retailer to grow, as well as specifically our version of the solution, the NCR Travel Marketplace.
Thank you, Michael. That was a great presentation, a lot of interesting concepts, and particularly looking at the retail markets and trends that are going on there. We are getting some questions coming in. I'm going to get Adam live here if he's available. And I want to start out with, obviously there are a lot of airports getting interested in the retail portion as a source of non-aeronautical revenues, and also taking advantage of the mobile travelers and the technology that's available. So what kind of obstacles are you hearing from consumers and customers and prospects relating to implementing a robust retail strategy?
I'd say, TJ, probably the 3 biggest ones that come up. Number 1 is the knowing their customer, right? Very often to date, airports especially, and there's a few, certain airports that have done a great job at identifying customers, and I'm not talking just about having a loyalty program, but having a good sense of where their passengers are from, both origination and destination type airports that, it's their home base, or hub airports where they're the primary transit point to go through. So it's one, they may not have that good picture of consumers today and passengers today to even know where they're coming from, where they're going to, and more importantly, what are they buying. That's one gap that they have. A second one we're finding is the kind of how do we get everyone to think out of the box on this, right? Because traditionally a lot of airport retailers have all kind of built up, this is my little space I'm working in, and they haven't figured out how can we, I'll never forget, we had one meeting where we had an airport, concessionaires, tenants rather, and the airline all in the same room at a big horseshoe table, and the question came up of who owns the customer, and they all argued that they all did own the customer, and not one of them said the passenger owns himself, right? They're the consumer, they're the one that's making the choice. We need to figure out collectively how do we improve their customer experience for all of our benefits. So I think that split over who owns it is probably the second big one. And the third big one, and it's not even really technology, is just on the process part of it. How do we want to go about having a strategy that says, yes, everyone says, hey, I want to grow non-aeronautical revenue, to help make my airport more attractive and a better customer experience, but it's actually getting to the operational standpoint of, well, what does that really mean and how are you going to do it? So a lot of times we start the conversation with, let's solve the problem of selling more, and then we have to roll back into, well, let's help you figure out what your strategy is going to be.
Very good. I want to hit on something that you had just brought up. You talked a lot about this in the context of opportunities for airports. It would seem to me that obviously the airlines could find obviously some great benefits from this. And you talked about maybe some divergent perspectives relating to that. What have you seen as far as opportunities for the airlines and the airports to better collaborate and developing seamless and mutually beneficial retail experiences?
I think there's huge upside for that, right? And it's going to take, building, there's probably 2 challenges. One is that, how does the adage go? Every airports are like snowflakes, no 2 are alike. That because there's different infrastructure physically at almost every airport in a way, that does make it a bit of a challenge if an airline was going to try and integrate with multiple airports. One, idea and concept we've had is think of just duty-free. Right? A big interest in our marketplace solution has been by duty-free stores, because by putting up an online or virtual catalog of their goods, they can both reduce a little bit of the physical footprint they may need for their store, and most often, especially in the U.S., they're usually doing the delivery to the gate anyway. So whether it gets delivered from the retail storefront operation or a warehouse right, somewhere behind the storefront or somewhere else on airport, in a way that doesn't matter to that duty-free retailer, But we kind of took it one step further. Gee, what would happen if, you on an, the part of the challenge with that is, gee, I can't sell in certain areas because I literally can't bring the bottle of alcohol through customs for security reasons, right? Or through really security for security reasons. So if I buy it, they're just going to confiscate it anyway. If I can only buy it and pick it up at my final airport destination, well, that could be a great example of a way that I could buy on board through the duty-free program with an airline and be able to fulfill from the duty-free merchant at the airport that I come to as my final destination, post-security. And there's a few airports that have begun to experiment globally. I think Changi Airport's probably been the one in Singapore has been the most vocal with it, where they actually have an online app to buy from some of their merchants and specific pickup locations within the 3 terminals that they have. I could see partnerships working in that regard for it, for how does you include that whole sales process overall, as well as for airlines to partner on a lot of the other either day of travel or other destination package pieces, especially with airports specifically, because the airport knows their local geographic area, right? They may have the deals with the local hotels within 5 minutes of the airport, and especially when you get to situations like a service recovery, right? How do we call it this year? The polar vortex, right? Hits an area, massive bad weather, hundreds of flights canceled, a big operational challenge for an airline to deal with. But if they had some of the relationships and partnerships with the various local airports and some of their retail partners, think of how smooth that might be able to go at either directing or actually directly organizing, whether it's hotel rooms, transportation, those types of other travel services through the existing channel.
Very good. You touched on, I think, one or a couple airport examples. Can you provide some examples of airports that are doing a good job of kind of integrating the technology and also, deriving some revenue from this?
Probably usually the question always wraps around to loyalty, right? Personally, I think Heathrow has done a really good job of establishing a traveler loyalty program primarily for their transit passengers to make it so that I get rewarded for my loyalty purchases there. They've made it somewhat seamless for me to get that through all their merchants. Changi's done that pretty well too with their, I think they call Changi Rewards is the reward program. So I see that as being a good way of starting to gather some of the information. I still see that there's some disconnects on how many merchants they get in touch with or that they integrate with. And part of that is also true the nature and maturity of some of those tenants that are in the airport. They may not have, an elaborate enough system, that tracks sales. Some of them have very old antiquated POS systems that maybe don't even track inventory, just track up a dollar amount from whatever the barcode is. So, there's some challenges there, I think, of how they've integrated pieces, but those two, Heathrow and Changi, I think have done really good jobs of handling that. And I think those are really good examples that, especially if we look geographically, we as American airports here should probably look to them for a lot of the lessons of what they've done.
Very good. Thank you. Additional questions from the audience. How do you reduce the clutter to show the customer what they are most in need of or want? And so how do you keep the interface attractive and simple, or what kind of guidance do you have on that front?
It's trying to make it relevant to where they are in the travel journey. And if you think of the one slide we had that had the circle of all the steps in the travel journey that you go through, you want to kind of limit it to identifying where the passenger is in that cycle, that life cycle, and filtering down to the most obvious or the more relevant pieces for it. That's one. We think also filtering down by the location too, right? Our master catalog has over 50,000 items. There's no way, that's thousands of pages of stuff to go through. We try and filter it down to the most relevant parts just on location or geography as a first standpoint, but you can also then get a lot smarter at breaking it down between time of day, time of year, and if you can associate a loyalty piece for it. We didn't show, but in our marketplace we do have a loyalty login if there's a loyalty program involved. That could even help you narrow it down more. So again, the more you know of the passenger, the more you, and where they are in their travel journey, the more you can filter down the recommendations that you're making for them. And again, maybe for everyone, think of your last Amazon experience, right? Based on a couple of the things you may input of things you're looking to buy, it'll pop up with a bunch of recommendations that are fairly well tuned because it uses your information plus what you just looked for to establish context.
Very good. Someone from the audience just noted, getting back to some initiatives that airports are undertaking, comment states that I just read that 3 Oregon airports just started working with the airlines to ship a free case of wine to be carried onto their flights. So again, yeah, I think airports and the airlines are starting to become a lot more cognizant of the opportunities with this. Question, with the future focus on kiosk acquisitions and direct mailings to your home, how is the airport collecting its commission on these sales?
I guess I'm not sure I understand the kiosk acquisition part.
Or maybe just that's probably kiosk use at the airports and then direct mailing at home or something to that effect. So again, how are the airports able to capture the commissions on these?
Well, for any of the sale that gets routed back through our marketplace, I'll talk about our solution specifically. We're tracking by it's a catalog that's specific to that customer, that airport. So whether the consumer comes in off a kiosk or off a mobile device or a web page or again some email blast that went out that they act on, that's all coming back to that core, let's call it the airport's catalog. Well, from that we've already established then for XYZ airport, or my famous DUL airport that's in there, for people who want to know that is a fake airport code. We've got predetermined what the commission splits are and where it all goes to, and depending to, there's a lot of setup issues you can get in there too on the payment side, especially around if there's products from multiple merchants and tenants, who's going to be the merchant of record, and a few cash management things, I'll call them, that certainly we would need to figure out the logistics with each airport or each concessionaire on who gets paid which piece for which item. But again, we've got that kind of structured so that we can handle just about any type of split arrangement that's agreed upon in whatever the business contracts are.
Very good. Question actually I had, and that is, for airports, if they serve in a role as O&D or, say, more of a hub transfer role within the national system, are there any kind of strategies or considerations for each, these types of airports and, efforts to engage passengers going through them?
Yeah, let's tackle hubs first, right? For the hub, it's certainly knowing, number one, where are your passengers coming, what was their origination point, what's their final destination point, because that'll help you tailor what content is available where. For example, one of the techniques we're working on is making sure we can promote content and try and tie it into the FIDS or AODB from the airport to know, well, this gate has a plane that's going to New York in an hour, so therefore for the next hour we're going to show New York content as a promotion. And for the hub, you're trying to identify, probably also depends on the schedule times too, right? How big of a layover do the passengers really have, and is that different between international flight schedules and domestic flight schedules, to try and identify who to target. For origination and destination, a little bit of the reverse. We're seeing in some of our initial pilot discussions and planning, using the destination airport actually as one of the places we're looking to put some of these devices is actually a baggage claim at large destination airports, because that's another place that passengers are captive waiting for a little bit, and if we can attract them, get them to engage, and either identify enough to take with them or actually make the transaction purchase there, it's a way to capture them at that moment when they've got nothing better to do.
Yeah, and I've certainly been there, done that. One question on, say, Hertz or any of the retailers that are taking advantage of that. Do they, or is there any sharing of knowledge regarding loyal customers and trends and things like that?
We haven't gotten to that yet to tie actually back into the, a larger travel provider like a Hertz to tie into their loyalty program to learn about them. I think overall that's the challenge for the industry, right? I mentioned we all have these different systems. We've all got a loyalty or account with every travel provider we probably all travel with. How do you eventually try and leverage some of those together? I'll admit we don't have an immediate answer for that. I know in individual travel organizations, there's airlines and hotels that have started to partner up on their loyalty programs primarily for elite benefits to share some information, but I think still that's just more the acknowledgement of someone's a member of each. I haven't seen any of the loyalty programs actually start to share that transactional profile data yet to say, well, gee, Michael always books this type of hotel room or this type of car and always books this type of seat on an airplane and always buys this thing at the airport 30 minutes before departure. I haven't seen everyone getting to that granular level yet.
Very good. I have one past the hour, and I think this has been very informative, and we have had a few other questions come in. What I'd like to do, Michael, is relay those to you and Adam and ask that you get back with those individuals and touch base with the other participants as needed. We'd be happy to do that.
We certainly will.
Sure. So ACC would like to thank you, Michael and Adam, for your help not only in getting the presentation up and running, but getting the logistics behind us, and I think this has been a great webinar and very informative, and want to thank NCR Corporation, of course, for sponsoring the webinar. ACC would also like to thank the participants today. We will be sending out a survey to participants soon, and we would greatly appreciate any feedback that you have both on the content of the webinar application and interface, and the registration process. We'd certainly appreciate your feedback on that. We will be sending out a copy of the webinar as well. And also a quick reminder for those that participate in past ACC webinars, such as our Technical Institute webinars, we normally do not do certificates of attendance with these Lunch and Learn webinars. We don't take rosters of those that are attending in your specific offices and things like that. So just wanted to let you know about that. And finally, in the future, we will be scheduling some additional webinars. We have one coming up, a very technical one on runway pavement markings. That will be held on May 14th, and we have a few others in the queue, including one we'll be doing on trends in self-bag tagging. That's going to be an interesting webinar coming up sometime early this summer, and we'll have all that information on the ACC website. So Michael and Adam, again, thanks so much, and we appreciate everyone's participation today.